Hello, welcome to another video. It's been a while, taking a huge break from YouTube, but we're back. And today we're going to be talking about Devil May Cry. Okay, Devil May Cry Season 2. If you guys didn't know, I'm a huge fan of Devil May Cry. I've played Devil May Cry since way back when it released, Devil May Cry 3, and every single subsequent game. And I bought recently all the collections, so I'm going to be able to go through those games. We're going to do a Devil May Cry-a-thon. Okay, now before we get to that lovely fun time, which is coming soon, I wanted to talk about this anime because video game anime adaptations don't always have the best track records, but I have mixed feelings about this anime. Okay, now I've seen a lot of the online consensus, and if you're here for another video that's just gonna shit all over this anime, it's not exactly that. Okay, there's some things here that I really like, there's some things that I don't like, and I want to explain my reasoning why. Now, first and foremost, I want to get to the obvious orange in the room. I don't know. That's a fucking weird-ass phrase. Who says that shit? Orange in the room. Anyways, video game adaptations, I do not think always have to one-for-one mimic the source material. I think it can be really cool when they change the source material into something else and you get a very cool adaptation. Or if you have original source material that doesn't expand enough on the story, I think that it's cool for somebody to take liberties with that story, and hopefully keep the spirit of the original. Now, that's kind of the caveat, right? Because if you make the story too different, then what's the point of even taking the IP in the first place is what, I would say. And I think that is different than somebody taking a story, then showing us a different part of a story that we didn't know about. That's different than taking an original story and then changing the spirit of it, okay? Now, when I saw the Devil May Cry anime, I'll tell you what I wanted first, and I'll tell you what they gave us, right? So, when the Devil May Cry anime came out, I was expecting this. I was expecting some crazy shit, because I knew that Capcom was backing this project. I wanted to see, crazy style, him switching between different forms, I wanted them to make dumb logic behind him doing trickster shit in the anime. That would have been cool to know. A bunch of little references. I did expect some campiness, so a bit of humor inside the anime. I expected that because, it's being delivered to Western audiences. And also, Dante's a pretty funny guy. Guys, have you seen the intro to Devil May Cry 3? That is what sold me on the whole series. That with the music, which, by the way, they used in Season 2 at one particular point, but that music was friggin' amazing, okay? And the whole sequence. Oh, boy. So, the first thing I noticed in the first season, which I was hoping wouldn't follow suit in the second, was the fact that there is no devil arms, okay? Which, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I know people are very good on the lore of Devil May Cry, but it's essentially like when Dante defeats a demonic spirit or something, like a very strong enemy, sometimes I believe they offer their soul, or either he collects it somehow and it becomes a devil arm, which has a very cool ability and power. I was hoping we were going to get Dante as a Swiss Army knife, which is of course why I talked about the different styles he has, but also I wanted him to be able to use the weapons from defeating these enemies and turning them into devil arms. I really wanted to see that in the anime so badly, but instead, Season 1 we see Agni Rudra killed early, and I'm like, okay, well, it's technically not the Devil May Cry 3 storyline, so maybe they come back. As far as I know, they're not coming back. And not only are they not coming back, but we got Ebony and Ivory too. So this is spoiler territory, guys. Ebony and Ivory are just regular guns. All these weapons that I thought that he would get, he did not get. I was a little bit sad about that. Okay. Something else I wanted is I wanted a little bit less of Lady's storyline, a little bit more focus on just Virgil and Dante, because I feel like that is what would have carried the series in general. I will tell you that is not what happened either, okay? We got something completely different. We got Lady being a very prominent character, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with Lady being a very prominent character. And I think I'm one of the few people who actually doesn't mind the fact that they wanted to flesh her out as much as they did. The choices that they made are... I don't even want to say necessarily the worst thing. If Dante and Lady had a romance, or they did in the games, it's not really shown. And if they develop one as something else that's added to the show, it's fine. It just detracts too much from what I feel like would have been actually interesting in the show, which is really seeing crazy, amazing fights and spectacular fashion. That's what I think Devil May Cry the game is good at, and I think that's what the show should have translated if they wanted people to be crazy hype about the show. Okay, so again, getting into stuff that I wanted and I didn't like. So we went over, the Devil Arms. I wanted to see more of a Virgil, Dante, and we do get a lot of Virgil, by the way, which I am happy about. The changes to characters and character personality. I was actually okay with season 1 Dante as like a prequel character and how he's supposed to be, but season 2 is heading into Devil May Cry 3 Dante. I thought he was okay. He's serious, but not always serious, and personally, I think that makes some sense, but I don't think Dante's an idiot, right? He's not stupid, which I feel like sometimes they lean into maybe a little bit too much. But again, that's not really something that bothers me that much. The things I previously mentioned bothered me much more. And as I was watching, I noticed how Virgil's character was pretty interesting too. I'm not going to say that they were necessarily like the worst written versions of themselves either. Virgil's character made sense for what happened to him and what he did, and the whole narrative that they were drawing. It never really struck me as, oh, this didn't make sense. I just thought that Virgil was a little bit more stoic in his approach, less quick to emotion, is what I gathered from at least Devil May Cry 3's depiction of Virgil, which is what I base some of my opinions on here for you guys. Let's go over some plot and narrative changes and what they were going for in season 2. So what I was expecting season 2 to be was to be the generic Devil May Cry 3 storyline, beat for beat, and not really changing much. But instead, we got something much different. We got Devil May Cry right? We got like Devil May Cry 2 storyline with the prequel of Devil May Cry 3 mixed in one, which if you know the order of the Devil May Cry series, you would know doesn't necessarily make the most sense, because Devil May Cry 2 technically didn't happen at that point and it's confusing. So whatever. Okay, we don't get Lucia, we don't get that story. I don't really like Devil May Cry 2. I'm going to play it as a part of the Devil May Cry, playing every single game for you guys. But I felt that Lucia and her storyline and all of that, it's fine to make that alteration. Sure. I would have liked maybe a nod to it, but whatever. The fact that they made the story the way they did with like the Macayans and the rebels and all of this or that, I was actually, at first I was a little bit annoyed by it, but I was like, whatever. It didn't really make me that excited to watch the show, that particular, oh, there's a war between races. Okay, sure. I just wanted to see Dante and Virgil. That's it, right? When it comes to Dante and Virgil and their relationship and how they behave with each other, it's pretty accurate. I'd say it's not bad. And their first fight together was very good. I was hyped, guys. I was genuinely hyped for it. I loved watching it. It was extremely entertaining, in my opinion. I think it was great. They did take that sword impale scene from DMC3 and then put it in that scene against the wall, against the TV screen, and I'm like, I'd kind of rather that be saved for that moment. But again, so much is different, right? Dante unlocked his devil trigger way earlier than he normally would have, and that's okay. But I don't know. I felt like that sword impaling scene is more impactful. But I see why they had it there, considering how they ended this season of Devil May Cry, because it's setting up for something very different. Now, throughout this series, they're actually building this small little plot line with William Baines, and I started thinking, because again, like, I'm not really a hater of this series. It's entertaining enough, and I just would like to see Devil May Cry animated. But Sir William Baines had me thinking that he was going to be the link to the Sanctus storyline in Devil May Cry 4. Why? Because every time he pops up on screen, he's referencing God, he's referencing, coming to like the rapture and all these other things. And I'm like, hey, he sounds a lot like those like angelic dudes from Devil May Cry 4. And if they're planning to go all the way with the storyline and bridging into Nero's story, my assumption is here's what they would do. They would go into the next season of Devil May Cry, and then they would finish Devil May Cry 3 storyline and mix it with Devil May Cry 1, and then you would get Trish in there, and then you would get that whole storyline with Mundus. Virgil's going to lose to Mundus. He's going to officially become Nello Angelo. Dante's going to have to defeat him. You're going to have to go through all of that. and then at the end it might lean into Nero's story, right? And I was hoping that somehow that Sir William Baines guy, who's constantly like, he's like the one guy making constant references to religion, would have something to tie into it, right? Because I'm going with the idea now that, okay, we're not going through the regular story. But no, he just kind of was a waste of time. He got absolutely fucking incinerated at the end of the series. Dude got fried and just melted. And I'm like, what was the point of him being there, right? I felt like that was a waste of a character because, again, I didn't think that him being there was bad. I think that he could have served a purpose, and that was the only purpose I could have thought him being in the show was, right? Like, he eventually becomes like a cult leader or someone adjacent for, you know, that summoning of that demon in Nero storyline. Cool. That would have been a cool tie-in, a cool way to pull the show together, in my opinion. And I was banking on it. I was betting on him being related to it. But no, he just dies. Dante and Lady being together and being a couple, being an item, it's like, whatever. It's just we spend way too much time on that in the season. I didn't like it. Something else I really didn't like, guys, this is my biggest pet peeve. I didn't like this in Arcane that much. And if you're gonna do this, you gotta use it sparingly for me. It's once or twice a season, and that's it. There are so many musical numbers and musical scenes where it's just music smash cut with a bunch of different montages. I don't think that makes for great TV. I've never liked it. I will never like it. And this is just a personal pet peeve. When they kept doing that, I was like, guys, I would just rather watch the show. I don't like this. And I saw a quote by Adi Shankar talking about how, like, you can have a scene that is really good that uses no words. Sure, but if that scene with no words is filled with music, smash cut montage, I feel like then it's, I don't know, it doesn't hit the way that maybe Adi thought it would, in my opinion. I don't like that form of storytelling. Again, very sparingly, very small moments, you can splice that in and I'll be still invested, but they used it too much. And Devil May Cry I was about to call it Devil May Cry 3. Devil May Cry Season 2. Something else that happens constantly in this anime, which I don't know how I feel about this either. It's like there's moments where Arius, like the main villain, he's powering up, he's super duper strong. He has telekinesis, he has all these different abilities, and it feels like Arius is so strong that he technically just cannot lose. Like, there is no explanation behind how Dante and Virgil are able to survive this guy when he's completely powered up. Because, mind you, they were struggling to fight this dude before he had all these new powers, right? So when he merges with like this essentially super demon, the fact that they're able to push him back or do anything to him, and the fact that he doesn't just telekinesis them and just flash and just like blow them literally up from the inside, I don't understand why he can't do that. And it's a case of like writing a character that's too powerful, so now you have potential plot holes. Because he does that. He does that to a group of people. It's not explained, right? You don't know why. It's like, why aren't they dead? Why are they able to? And might be able to say, okay, well, he can never do that. Their bodies are too durable or something like that. Or maybe Virgil with his devil trigger is too much. It's like, well, he could have done that before. He could have done a lot before. Now, I understand that a part of the plot was like, okay, he doesn't necessarily want to kill them because he wants to use them, because he could use their blood and he can use this or that and he can get them on his side. And up until that point, he was thinking that Virgil might have come to help him. But, even besides all that, why doesn't he just still use so many of those other powers that he had in the very final fight? He becomes like this hulking mass monster and kind of fucking walks around not doing shit. And that was weird for me as well. Now, at the end of the day, I can't really blame the people working on Devil May Cry, the writing necessarily, because they might not have that much to work with. I know that there was previously an actual Devil May Cry anime, and I'm pretty sure there was some kind of light novel, I don't know, related to the show, so maybe they could have used some resources from that, but even so, they're kind of trying to develop character ideas and motivations, and maybe they thought that the previous characters were not done in a way that was, very interesting for people to watch. But, I would heavily disagree. Lady's character was very mysterious and just had her own motivations and own will. And that was one of the interesting things about Lady. She didn't really care. She didn't really seem to care that much about Dante. It was more about her mission and her path for getting revenge against, Arkham, right, her father. I want to give this show a good rating. I want to say that this show was awesome. I want to say that I enjoyed it all the way through. And there was some cool moments, but it's just pretty predictable. you can kind of guess how everything's gonna go, which is fine, right? But it doesn't do anything that makes me think like, damn man, that's the Devil May Cry anime, dude. Like I said, if they went all in on the spectacle and the fights and the action and focused on literally taking the game and making the fun parts from the game in the anime, I think they would have had a better reception, at least from the main fans. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who've watched this anime and had no idea about Devil May Cry before and actually really did enjoy watching it, right? Because you're probably not as invested or care as much about the source material or the characters. So it's just interesting to watch, which is fair, right? They did a lot with it. I know there's also another camp of people who just really don't like the show because it does a lot with potential politics and social commentary. And to that, I don't like, it's whatever. If it's serviceable on TV, I'll watch it. I'm just that kind of a goblin, right? Anyhow, overarching thoughts. I think that they missed out on some opportunities for interesting plot points. I think that they could have made things a little bit more interesting. I think there's some questionable story choices in just the direction of Lady, Dante, the direction of the whole dark com subplot. It felt like why even have it the way that it ended? It doesn't tie into anything, but we're going into the next season. The whole jester court situation was, you need to keep in mind that everything that I see or a Devil May Cry fan would see is we've seen the jester, we've seen Lucia, we've seen the storyline, so it's a bit jarring to see it fragmented the way it is, and that is what makes it the weirdest watch for us, right? But again, I don't think that it is as bad as people are saying, but I would not go and tell everyone that they would need to watch it. Who is a major fan of Devil May Cry? If you've never watched Devil May Cry before, I'm pretty sure you can watch the series and enjoy it. Sure, right? But I still think that they can do a lot more with it. Just knowing that there won't be any devil arms, I don't know what else they're going to change. Oh shit, yo, speaking of devil arms, I just freaking remembered Beowulf is there, right? My favorite weapon from the DMC games. He's there, the demon Beowulf. And man, he didn't do shit. He just got trashed, man. I was hoping that, I don't know, maybe mid-fight Virgil would rip off his arms and put him on like boxing gloves, but we didn't fucking get that either. Oh man. Those are my very rambly thoughts for season 2. I'm hoping that the next season just makes a few changes. I feel like having ladies sidelined a little bit would be helpful, just to focus a little bit more on it, because like you don't have any dark com. Push Lady to the side a little bit. Let Dante be able to do what he does best, which is just kill shit and look cool doing it. I think the action can definitely carry the series. It's probably a very different take than a lot of people would have, but I think it definitely can, because it's cool. It's Devil May Cry. And that's pretty much it. Those are my thoughts on Devil May Cry Season 2. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Headbutt that subscribe button.